What's in the Box episodes of horror with Donna and Eric. I'm Donna.
And I'm Eric.
And this is our Christmas movie special edition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, by your face, you're just like, you did not enjoy it.
Oh yeah. If I would have watched it earlier, I would have texted you knowing you were still awake, so I could say, "Hey, we're not doing this. I'm not finishing this. This was terrible." I mean, I don't know. We'll see. We got a couple of things to go over, but
Yeah. All right. So,
we would have been better off watching something to do with Christmas Carol, or you know, I don't know,
yeah, I
any
thought
other.
about it after the fact. I'm like, maybe we should have done like Scrooge or something, you
That'd
know?
have been our theme since we did the book last year, but
Yeah.
we could have done Black Christmas. We could have done. Oh, there's so many Christmas movies we could have done, and then you pulled out a fastball here. So
Well, neither one of us had seen it.
that's true. I've
Um,
avoided this movie since it came out, and thought, well, maybe it'll be okay. And no,
so I
I
watched it this afternoon,
well, so
and
you watched it after I did. I should have sent you a note.
yeah. So when I went to search for it, I couldn't remember where I had seen I could watch it. Um, when I finally found it, I didn't realize how many movies there were with this name, and I'm like, oh man,
Yeah.
I hope we're watching the same movie
Well, and for anybody, we haven't even mentioned it yet. I don't think
yeah,
we watched Jack Frost,
from
and not the Michael Keaton.
1997. Yeah, not the
Michael
Michael
Keaton
Keaton
came
one.
out in '98. Even Dawn's like, "Oh, I've seen that movie." I go, "No, you haven't. You
No.
saw the Keaton one. You did not see the one I sat through last night. It was it was amazing." And I've sat through some pretty bad movies, but I was shocked at how um I don't know. I mean,
You
I
don't
don't
even have
remember.
anything to say. You're just
I'm
like,
dumbfounded by the fact that we're talking about it. So we should just dive right in and figure it out.
yeah, so we'll dive right in.
One cold night, science and evil collide. Oh, yeah. Now, a serial killer is on the loose.
We hadn't even tested the acid on an amoeba, let alone a human cell. This is a disaster.
Look, I just saw something that doesn't belong in this world, and it's out there killing my friends. Now tell me what it
This is
is.
how they got people to go to the theater.
Jack
Yeah.
Frost.
I think Jack's about to make an entrance. And he's giving cold-blooded a whole new meaning.
Hey, Jack! What? You left the 710 split.
Hell has just frozen over.
So this is basically the whole movie.
Yeah,
Blow me.
the best parts.
There's another line that
Jack Frost.
that was really most of the movie.
Ma! I'm a Picasso!
That wasn't. All right, so I don't see how anybody would have saw that movie after seeing that, other than you saw the lady. So, and that was
Yeah.
Shannon Elizabeth
Yeah.
from American Pie. So this is like her first movie, not her first acting gig. I went and looked. She did some TV stuff, but this is her first movie. And they don't even. I'm not even sure it's her. It could be a body double. So the little bit you do get. I mean, the one thing they could have done to at least make you feel like this is worth the price of admission is, have that go a little bit crazier than it did, and it was still just terrible.
Yeah. I think I really loved the beginning part. So it starts off with you're like seeing all these Christmas decorations, and then you hear somebody telling a story to a little girl.
Yeah,
So that was fun because it
it
was like,
had a
oh,
good vibe to it, like
I'm
a
gonna,
like a Christmas
yeah,
special vibe.
yeah, I'm gonna tell you a scary story. The little girl's like, oh no, when
Did it
he
not
gets,
kind of remind you of Tales of the Dark Side? And what was the other one that was like that? from the 80s when we were growing up, the one that had the gargoyle story. Oh, maybe that was Tales from the Dark Side. You want to have the three? It was like
Tales
we
from
had
the
like
Crypt.
no, it was
No.
just a straight up movie. It had the guy from Scott Valentino from what was that Michael J. Fox TV show?
Oh,
Family Ties.
Family Ties.
Remember the girl, the Mallory's boyfriend, the one
Yeah,
with
yeah,
the
yeah.
earring. Remember he's in this anthology horror movie. And it had like one story about witches and a story about an artist and a gargoyle. Don't ever turn around. You're not supposed to see the gargoyle or whatever. I'll have to put it. I'll put it in here. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And this is the movie. So, but it did have that vibe at the beginning, make you kind of think of the old '80s anthology movies. But nah, man, this is a terrible movie. It's just an awful movie. I mean, it's not. I mean, because they don't ramp the violence up. They
No.
don't ramp the sex and nudity up. They don't ramp anything up. So I'm like, how did this? I felt like a PG-13 movie in theaters.
Yeah. It had a really strong beginning though, because I really like the first scene where the opening credits, and then with Jack Frost in the transport, because the whole thing is about a serial killer is getting transported to his execution
In the middle of a snowstorm.
in the middle of a snowstorm. Why they would do that? But I
That week from
loved the
Christmas.
scene where like they called it acid or whatever, like
Yeah, some
covered
sort of
him.
scientific thing.
Yeah.
So I guess we're to believe that the government set up the accident so they could test the stuff on the serial killer guy to see what would happen.
Yeah.
That's the vibe I got out of it. By that
Yeah.
point, I was multitasking. So I'm not even paying attention 100%.
Mhm.
But I
Okay.
did rewind it back so that I could see for sure why they did that, because I was trying to figure out how we got to the acid part, and it made a little more sense
Yeah.
once you see it's a government conspiracy kind of thing. The guy that got
Yeah.
to be the serial killer, I think he's supposed to be tongue in cheek and funny and stuff, and he plays it like he knows he's in a movie, which
Yeah.
I don't mind that. I think that's fine. It's better. It'd be more entertaining if it was really Deadpool fourth wall craziness.
Yeah.
The snowman himself,
Yeah. It was horrible.
yeah, we needed some
Yeah.
CGI action here. He was
Yeah.
in a suit, and you could tell when his hands looked like oven mitts.
Yeah.
And
For
it was
sure.
so terrible when he would kill stuff. And the other thing I didn't understand was how he killed people. All those effects left me scratching my head, which we'll get to because I included those pictures because I wanted to make sure we pointed it out. Now,
Yeah.
I thought it was funny that the snowman is in the serial killer got busted by a county sheriff.
Yep.
And so he's vowed revenge no matter what. And so the county sheriff is, even though he knows that the guy's dead because he's been told he's dead, he still thinks that something's up. So that's
Yeah.
at least, there's a storyline going on there. So there's a reason why the snowman's in the town, and he's setting up to attack the house. And the kid, I was sure he's going to bite that kid's hand off, and
Yeah.
and he doesn't, which is fine. And then the bullies show up, and then they skate by, and then the snowman pushes it so that his own sled cuts his head off, which I thought,
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't even a deep enough blade to cut through an entire neck and stuff, but that was kind of funny because it kind of threw it in the air like his hat, and then
Yeah.
the blood was on stuff. And I was like, but right there, I mean, that was an opportunity for them to really terrify it up,
Yeah.
And but it was 97, so I'm trying to think. Oh, I should have gone back and looked at all the movies that came out in 97 to see exactly the level of what we were expecting as fans. So
Let's
that would have
see.
been probably what Scream 2, maybe?
I
Or do you
don't
think
know. Let's see.
no, I don't even think Scream might have been out by that time.
No. Scream was like 2000.
Yeah. Trying to think. I want to say Scream was
Event Horizon. You were close. I Know What You Did Last Summer.
yeah, okay. So
Um,
yeah.
the
That came out after
uh
Scream. So Scream had to have already been out.
yeah, Wishmaster, American
Okay.
Werewolf in Paris.
Oh, I love that
Scream
movie.
2. Scream 2 was actually out in 97. So
Okay. That makes sense because I remember I think I remember seeing that one. I remember seeing that one in the theater. Scream 2.
Yeah.
And American Werewolf in Paris. Love that movie. That
Yeah.
movie
The
makes me
Relic
laugh.
came out in 97. The
Terrible.
Preston Child.
Yes, terrible for an adaptation.
Yeah.
Great for a monster movie in a museum. I love that movie for what it is, but I don't
Yeah.
like to tie it to
Yeah.
their books because they don't even have Pendergrass.
Yeah.
So what's the point?
Yeah.
But I do love a good monster running through a museum eating people kind
Mhm.
of thing. So I'm like, okay, that was cool. And that's also one of the reasons if you're a big fan of Super Troopers, they did a horror movie. And in it they have a character that they call Penelope. And all of that is based off of them going to see Relic, and the kids in front of them didn't know how to say what's her name? The main character in that was how would you normally say that name? Now I can't think. Now I can only think of it.
Pendergast?
No, Penelope, a woman's name, like this.
Penelope.
Penelope. I can only think of it in the wrong way because I heard the story once. So the kids like Penelope, because she's the main character. And then when her name showed up, he says Penelope, and then the two guys from Super Troopers are like, "That's the funniest thing they've heard." You know, they're laughing about it. They wrote it in their movie. The one that's now I can't think of it. I'm drawing a blank on names tonight. I need to get some vitamin
This movie
supplements or
kind of
something.
sucked your brains out.
It must have because it's killed all the fun. So, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. Can you? I don't even remember this one being in theaters. I'm sure it was.
No, it was straight
Was
to
it?
video from what I
Okay,
saw. Yeah,
even
which makes
better.
sense. Yeah.
And back then we didn't have streaming, so nobody would have seen it.
Yep.
And all those people are probably happier.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
And it, yeah. And we
Well,
got
this is
the
a famous actor though, right? I've seen him in a lot of stuff.
yeah.
And so that was weird when he popped up and I thought, oh, they actually got a cast here. There's
With
somebody.
this
But then that
yeah.
was so silly when they all had
Yeah. Hair dryers.
yeah. And then to set this hair dryer up, this isn't a police station, and they had a lady cop that just did her hair the whole time. Every time they had her on, she was
She
blow
was
drying
doing her hair. Yeah. No, I think she was probably like the dispatcher, secretary.
Still having the
Yeah.
hair blower going the whole time. I mean, that was so obviously set up for later.
Yeah.
This guy played it very serious, and I appreciate that because the movie's
Yeah.
so silly. It's one of those things where he actually lends something to it. So
Yeah.
I thought he did pretty good for the whole part of it. You know, he's
Except
a
for that
dad.
stupid the stupid scene where he's like, "Oh, the 7-10 split," which I think is a bowling
Yeah,
reference.
because I think they missed. He went right between. The ball goes through the two guys, and he's
Yeah.
left the split. But yeah, no, it's a terrible, terrible, terrible pun, and
Yeah.
doesn't really fit anything. But other than that, he plays it pretty straight laced,
Yeah.
and it's fine.
Yeah,
That
it's
he's
fine.
fine as a character. He's exactly what you want from your town sheriff.
Yeah, he's not that great of a dad though because he didn't eat the kids' cookies, which we'll cover.
Yeah, the kid when he pulls that stuff out of the slop out of the bucket, and he's like, "Here, eat this." He's like, "Oh, I'll take it with me." I mean, it looks like it's gonna kill him, and later we find out that it would have killed him if he had eaten it, which is amazing. And then that kid's old enough to know better. That kid
Yeah,
is not
totally old enough to know better. That was like a 3-year-old move.
right. Yeah, it's like no, man. He's old enough to function here. We don't.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that was a funny line though. When at the very beginning, when the bully gets killed and his head flies and the blood's everywhere, the camera swings back to the kid, and he goes, "I didn't do it." And I thought
Yeah.
that was kind of funny because
I
obviously,
didn't do it.
And then this guy is some sort of secret agent, and every time they would say a branch of Secret Service or whatever, or
FBI,
CIA,
whatever.
he'd always go, "Yeah, let's go with that," or he
Yeah,
would
let's
just
go.
so
Yeah,
I thought that was kind of funny. They were so non-committal about this guy. And
yeah,
they were running a secret test experiment, and that's how we get the snowman guy, because he's basically the essence of the serial killer, but he can control moisture. Is that what it is? Water?
yeah.
And he kept
I thought the
freezing it.
I thought the concept was cool because it made it so he could freeze and unfreeze at will, and that's how
Mhm.
he would get into places. He would melt himself and then reform on the other side.
it's a very cool idea if they would have taken it a little more, if they would have taken the whole thing serious, if they would have
Mm,
had better graphics, and that they would have had a totally different storyline where the killer's actually going out to like assassinate people or whatever.
yeah.
And you could make it more like that than this being a grudge match between a serial killer and
And a
you know,
small town sheriff.
yeah. And it was like,
I was
ugh.
I was a little bummed because of course they're having a snowman competition in
So
the
there's snowmen
town.
everywhere. Yeah.
So I thought like, oh man, all these snowmen are gonna come alive and like rah in the town.
Yeah. So maybe that happens in the sequel because I'm sure there's a sequel to
Oh
this.
yeah, I think
Because
there is a sequel.
And the other thing that drove me crazy is that anytime he was at a crime scene and the people were trying to figure out what's going on, the victims right before they were killed, they would always grab a huge chunk of ice and then look at it as if they didn't know that they were holding a huge chunk of ice or snow
Yeah,
packed. You know what I mean? They look at it in complete amazement. It's like you've held ice and snow before. You know what you're holding. Now you may
yeah,
don't understand why it's there, but don't look at your hand like you've just,
yeah,
I don't know, put it into somebody's body or something. It was very oddly handled every time somebody discovered that he was in the house
yeah.
or
I liked how
outside or what
the
he was doing.
yeah, I liked how this guy kind of like turned around and he was like, "Okay, I need your help. You're gonna
Yeah, they didn't have any of that inner. As soon as this guy needed help, he asked for it. They didn't do any of that stuff that you normally get with police shows or movies.
yeah." So you thought for sure it was going to be the typical, oh, the government agency comes in and it all goes to shit. I mean, it kind
Uh,
of is what happened, but
yeah, and the other guy we saw in the commercial, I couldn't. They didn't have a picture of him. The guy saying,
yeah,
that about the molecules and stuff,
yeah, the scientist guy.
but he was an idiot because he was all pro serial killer. He kept telling him to watch out, and he was like I'm on your side and all that
Well,
stuff.
that's
It didn't
because he
make any
wanted to save
sense.
his experiment because he's like, this is my proof.
So they give you a little bit of Shannon Elizabeth. Okay, then and talk about make no sense. Her and her boyfriend break into the police chief's house or the sheriff's house after the sheriff evacuates the house because he thinks the serial killer's coming. They think that's the place to go hang out because there's nobody there. And they're going to go take a shower. She's going to take a shower to warm up, I guess. But I mean,
Yeah,
it's like it made no sense why they were in this house. They could have been in their own
yeah.
house. It wouldn't.
They could have been like, well, they couldn't have been in her house because her parents were killed. Like, so
Yes.
she's
Well, she
she's the
ran
one
out of that house because her brother is the one that got hit
got
by the
killed.
sled. So,
Yeah, and then
but
her dad
she
ends up getting killed, and this is her mom.
Yeah, well, the reason I included this one is because the snowman stuffs a crystal, like a glass ornament in her mouth, beats her in the head, and then slams her face into a box of ornaments multiple times. Those ornaments break, and yet somehow the one in her mouth never breaks.
Yeah,
And I was like, there's that her whole mouth should be filled with shards of glass, blood
yeah,
coming out.
and dripping blood. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, this
What?
is that
Yeah,
that annoyed me. And it was just so they could decorate the lady with lights and stuff so they find the body. He puts
yeah,
all the stuff on her. And it's like, yeah. I mean, it was so not original or thoughtful at that kill. The Shannon Elizabeth one is he shows up, kills the boyfriend. I'm trying to think how he killed the boyfriend. Oh, yeah, with his
ice.
nose, right?
Y-
Oh, was that
It was
the ice
icicle because he
goes
had him up
through
against
him?
yeah,
Yeah, it comes out the back, so we don't even get a good scene of that, but
yeah,
it was fine. And then
yeah,
and then he goes upstairs and she's in the shower,
yeah. But
and then she
before
makes a bath.
before the bath, she's drying her hair,
That's right,
fully
she is.
clothed,
Yes,
and then she looks in the bathroom, and I guess the tub was full of water, and she thought her boyfriend had drawn a bath. So she takes off her clothes and gets in this bathtub and dunks her head immediately in the tub after just spending like the whole time her boyfriend's getting
that's
killed,
true.
blow drying her hair.
Yes, and
So I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
and so and I think that at that point they're hoping that just her being in a bathtub would be enough to dissuade all the logic of all the other situations. So then she starts screaming because the water gets cold.
Yeah,
And then it turns into the snowman, who I am 99% sure rapes her as a snowman
yeah, with
and
his
slams
carrot
her up.
nose.
Well, see, and that's it though. He didn't have the carrot nose, did he?
He did. It floated
Did he
to the
put it
top of the
down?
water,
That's right. It comes into the water, which
and
I
it's
thought was
not on his
hilarious.
face.
That was hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's got to be there. So yeah, I guess he does have sex with her
So
with
she
the
feels
carrot.
this weird thing just like pop up in the water, but she does not open her eyes until the water starts getting cold and freezing her. But I'm
Yeah.
assuming it's the carrot because then afterwards, when she's dead,
He puts the
he
carrot
takes
back.
he
Yeah.
puts the carrot back.
You're right. You're right. I was like, but he's like slamming her against the wall. But then he says something like, was it good for you? So you know that for sure he did
Yeah.
that. And then she dies. And then,
And then he says something like, "Oh, I gotta send her flowers" or something.
yeah, terrible line.
Terrible.
And,
Yeah. I thought it was cool how they did like the freeze, her being frozen
yeah, you
in.
could tell
Like,
that was a good chunk of the budget. And it was
yeah,
interesting because it forms into a person and it didn't look terrible. Like it didn't
yeah,
look claymation or anything like that. So
yeah. And her arms were like frozen through him,
yeah,
so she
yeah.
couldn't like, she was.
Yeah, they had it just perfectly positioned so that everything is blocked. So
Yeah,
that's why I was thinking it might be a body double or something like that. So, but she dies. Shouldn't have been in the house anyways. So she kind of gets what she deserves at that point.
yeah,
Is what they're probably thinking.
yeah.
And then I don't understand. Okay, so this is the other thing I didn't. So this guy with the axe,
This is the dad.
why in God's name did he kill him with the handle in his like? Why you have an axe?
Yeah,
Hit him with the axe.
yeah,
When he hit the ground and then it's just the axe shoved into his mouth, I thought, what is this? Doesn't make any sense. It's not even a callback to anything that was said. I don't understand.
yeah,
It's like they didn't have the ability to do the special effects of getting hit in the face with an axe, and this is what they came up with.
yeah. And
Not,
you could totally tell it's not even like
yeah,
there's no way that's a full axe
yeah. If it
handle.
was sticking out the back of his head, then okay,
That would be
maybe,
cool.
maybe
Yeah,
we could be like, okay, I get it now. It's just the force of the blow, but you have an axe. Use the
yeah,
axe, you know,
yeah,
as I did,
yeah,
and he's a serial killer. Come on.
yeah.
He knows what he's doing. Now, the reason I included this one, this is scientist.
This
He comes stumbling out because he's full of the Jack Frost character, and he's trying to get away. And then somebody stops. The sheriff stops him, and he goes, "Well, screw this!" And he turns around and he starts throwing up Jack. But you can obviously tell that the tube is on this side of his face because it's not lining up the whole time it's happening. I thought, man,
yeah.
this is terrible. They didn't even try to fix it. It's so obviously not coming out of his mouth. It's just spraying next to him. So I was like, okay. By this time, I was invested though because this is near the end of the movie. So
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
was just like, man. I mean, it's starting to feel like a school project where like this is a first time
yeah.
student and not somebody who was given a budget and allowed to do these things. Now, the funny part here, now, this is what I didn't understand. Was the sheriff at a cat house? When
I
at
don't,
the end, when they're trying to lure Jack into that building?
I
Because I
don't
didn't,
know.
because they're all having sex in the rooms, right? They're all making sex jokes and stuff. Every door he
Yeah,
knocked on. But I'm like, they can't just have an openly, like a cat house with the sheriff in there. It wouldn't be common knowledge. And why would he pick that place to be in? But
yeah,
it was a large build, like maybe it was maybe it was just a hotel, but it sure seemed like it was something else going on.
yeah,
And then Jack gets in the thing, and he gets thrown out the window.
yeah. So
No, is that when
first what happens is Jack and his son, because they think he's
Yes,
done.
yeah, no, we didn't get to that part.
Yeah,
Your favorite line, the
yeah.
seven split.
So the mom goes to do something. He sends his wife away, and then him and the kid are in the cruiser, and all of a sudden Jack's coming through the vents and everything, like getting in the car, and he pops up in the back seat, and they get out of the car, and he starts getting burned, and they're
Yeah,
like, "Oh, he's burning." So the slop stuff that the kid had made was in the back seat, and the dad's like, what did you put in that? What did you put in that?" And he's like, "I just didn't want you to be cold." And so the kid had put antifreeze in this
just makes you
food that
shake
he
your head.
made for his father.
And actually, it was on the front dash because remember he grabs it, smashes it in his
Oh
face, and
yeah, yeah,
jumps out
yeah.
the thing.
Yeah.
So it's in a Ziploc bag, and it still burns through the Ziploc bag into the guy, unless it opened on him, which I didn't see. But yeah, before that though, we even forgot something else. They blew him up before that.
Oh yeah, they
I
blew him up.
forgot because when he does the bowling line, they all have the fans. They get him in the jail and they get him
That's right. I
situated
forgot the jail.
and they
Yeah.
blow up the jail because that's where my favorite line is. They blow up the jail and he's like flying through the air and he says, "I can see your house from here."
Oh yeah.
And I
I
thought
can
that was
see your
funny.
house from
I
here.
laughed out loud when he did that because I was like, "That's funny, witty, out of place because you weren't expecting it." And then he
Yeah.
lands, and that's when you see in the preview the I'm a Picasso because he
Yeah.
reforms himself and he's having trouble because of the damage done from the explosion.
Yeah.
And then he
That's
goes
right.
and does the cruiser thing that you're talking about. Then we learn that antifreeze is going to be the thing that
To
can
kill him.
kill him. And he somehow gets there's some guy that shows up through the whole movie and he's the handyman slash he owns the
Hardware
hardware
store.
store.
Yeah.
And he has
He's always delivering
things.
salt.
Yeah. So then he
He's
goes and fills the back of a truck with antifreeze because he
yeah.
has all the antifreeze in town, which I
Yeah.
thought was kind of weird too.
Yeah.
And then they grab the snowman and I'm not 100% sure if antifreeze would do anything to the humans that were like splashing around in it.
I mean, it would probably like burn their eyes and make them sick
Yeah,
if they like,
you would
you
think. And
know,
they dove into it, and he's in there splashing around and stuff, and he's
and
just sitting there like
fighting
nothing.
and you can tell it's like cotton, like wet cotton,
Yeah.
because he's
Oh
like
yeah.
picking up
Anytime we
pieces of
got,
the
anytime we saw the snowman in any kind of piece, you could almost always tell what piece it was: oven mitt, cotton,
yeah.
whatever. It would have been probably a funny college, like, entrance movie. Like I'm trying to get my grade here. But I
Yeah.
mean, this was a paid for Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
But you're
And there
right. The
was
idea itself was cool. If they could have redone it a different way, I understand why they did the humor, trying to make up, I think, for the lack of the other stuff. But
yeah. And
oh
I
man,
like
it's just a
how like
terrible.
so when the snowman falls into the back of the truck, one of his arms go flying and the boy picks it up and he's like, "What about this?"
Yeah, he's
So then
already.
it wraps around him and the mom picks up the kid and dumps him in the back of the pickup with all the
Yeah,
antifreeze.
like I'm saying, they're damaging their child here. But yeah, all of it was. I mean, at that point, we already know the kid just isn't right in the head.
Yeah, because he's putting
If he's
antifreeze. And this is not a young kid. This is like, I mean, he's got
yeah,
to be at
that's
least like 10, 12, something like
yeah,
that.
he
Yeah.
knows better, and
Yeah.
so I
And
just
then
thought it was all funny.
what they do, oh, and the sheriff had gotten like stabbed with an icicle while he was waiting for the
Yeah,
hardware guy to come with the truck. But so what do? They empty all of the antifreeze back into bottles from the back of the truck, and then they bury it.
and while they're doing it, you can hear the guy's voice, so you know
Yeah.
that there's got to be a sequel
Yeah.
unleashed on the populace. So this was one of those. This was a crazy Christmas movie. I don't
It
know what to
was. It
say.
was for sure. I was a little nervous because I was like, "Oh, is this really even a Christmas movie or is it just winter?" But then it started off with that whole Christmas decoration and telling a
That's why
Christmas.
you were nervous. It wasn't because it was so terrible that we sat through an hour and a half. I
Hey,
even looked.
I had never seen it. It was only like an hour long.
Oh, it was an hour and a half. I know because
Was
at
it?
30 minutes into it, I checked. I still had 58 minutes left. So
Oh, you're like, "Oh, this is gonna be the longest 58 minutes of my life."
yeah, but no, I mean, like I said, there were a few times there were things to talk about. So, but
I
yeah, no,
mean,
as a Christmas movie, it falls short.
yeah.
I mean, it is a Christmas movie. I guess as a movie, it falls short.
Yeah, I mean, death by Christmas ornaments, Christmas tree. I mean,
Yeah, it definitely had all those aspects to it. It just was not a good movie. Although I am intrigued now. If there is a sequel, could it be worse?
yeah,
This is exactly the kind of movie that I grew up watching though. That would have been a movie that showed up on USA, something like that we watched on the
yeah,
weekends when we didn't. That's the other thing. It's so funny is you and I always talk about it. So limited on how we could watch these things. So we would have sat through that happily just because it was a horror movie
right.
and it didn't matter. There was no overload. You couldn't see enough horror movies, no matter
Yeah,
how bad they were. And USAA and TNT and TBS would always have those marathons where you could watch And sometimes they were edited, over
And
edited, and
Sci-Fi.
sometimes they weren't. Oh yeah, sci-fi
Sci-Fi
always too.
Channel used to have the best cheesy horror movies.
Yeah, yeah. By that time, though, I feel like we were already out of, we were young adults by the time sci-fi was something.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the good old days when we were 8, 9, 10,
yeah,
getting to watch those, on a Saturday morning, or if you're lucky enough to stay up late, you could watch them, when they edited less of it.
yeah,
Or if you're even luckier and you had HBO or access to Showtime or something like that, then you could really see some horror movies. They always had some really good low budget stuff, but um, you know, and in the 80s, if that was on the shelf of a video store that I frequented, maybe I would have grabbed it. Who knows? I mean, although probably not, because that cover is terrible.
yeah,
If you're not going to have a lot of money in the movie, man, pay somebody to do a cover that gets your attention. That
yeah.
cover is almost as bad as the Michael Keaton cover. And I think the only reason the Michael Keaton thing works is because Michael Keaton's in it. And
Hmm.
it's a family film, and so your family's suckered into going to see it anyways. Um, but yeah, if you're going to do a good horror movie, then you need to have a good cover. And that's the one thing that we always talk about with the horror books from our youth and movie covers, VHS tape covers. They always had great art, and they would sucker you in, and it'd be the worst thing ever. But the art on that cover really sold it, oversold it. And so this is one where I feel like they really missed the ball on all aspects of it.
Yeah. Had really high hopes for it because of the beginning. I was like, this
No,
is
you're
gonna be
right. The
cool.
opening sequence is really cool, and it almost makes me feel like they all went in on the opening sequence because that's what they showed the studio. Look what we could do. They're like, oh,
Yeah,
this is awesome. Let's do this, and then they go and do what they did the rest of it. They're like, oh, direct to video. Okay, so
yeah,
and
yeah. It
and
was,
and nowadays direct to video isn't the same. That's the other thing. I don't know if a lot of people know that. In anything before 2010, direct to video was an embarrassment. They
hmm.
would like release if it was a famous person, their movie would get released in one theater just so they wouldn't have to have direct to video on the show notes or whatever. I mean, that was a big deal. Nowadays, nobody cares. You just go straight to streaming. Who cares? And it's big
Yeah,
movies now. But that was like the fact that Trick or Treat, it was a direct to video because they couldn't figure out what to do with it for so long.
right.
That was a mark against it because that was right around the time when it was still taboo, or not taboo, but it's frowned upon.
Yeah.
You were thought of as less. That's why if you have you ever seen ICU, and I think it has a different title, but the I is spelled out with I, EYECU, and it's a Sylvester Stallone movie. It's a serial killer movie, and it's based in the snow, and he's like a cop that's trying to chase a serial killer, and the serial killer gets away and then starts terrorizing him, like kills his wife or something. And so it's his descent into like almost madness as he's trying to figure it out. It was one of those movies that they released it in one city so they wouldn't say direct to video, but it's a movie I really like that's fun.
It sounds familiar. I just can't.
It has two titles. I don't remember the other title because today is the day I don't remember anything. So um,
I'm sorry. Next year you could pick the Christmas horror
no,
movie.
it's fine. I don't know. I mean, what would we have watched? I sat there and thought about it. I mean, I guess we could have watched Krampus, but have you seen Krampus?
I love Krampus.
Yeah, see,
Krampus
and
was
I do
good.
too. And we would just be on here talking about how great it is versus, um, Trick or Treat. And then maybe we could have got one of the other Krampus movies that came out that try and piggyback on it. That
Yeah,
might have been fun, but it's better that we saw something we hadn't seen so that we could be like, oh, there's something to it. But
yeah.
I could easily do a Christmas Carol like introspective where we saw like 4 or 5 different versions of that.
Yeah.
I could do that. That would be fun because
Yeah.
there's so many different takes on it. We could have seen some that are more horror, comedy, whatever. So maybe
Yeah.
we do something like that next year, or maybe
Yeah.
something comes out really cool. We had discussed doing Terrifier 3, but we hadn't done 2 yet, so I didn't want to jump straight through that. So I mean, this is what it is.
So you guys are stuck with Jack Frost.
Yep, you guys get Jack Frost. You
I mean
basically
it,
see all of it in that preview, so you don't really have to
yeah.
worry about it.
Yeah, the best parts were in the
They
trailers.
even had they even had the little bit of nudity that was in the stupid movie is in the preview.
Yeah.
So I was like, what the heck? They didn't
Yeah.
even give you that. They gave it all to you right there for free. So,
Yeah.
but maybe Jack Frost 2 is good. Maybe we're going to be suckered into checking that out.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean it's billed as a horror comedy and
Yeah. And then
yeah,
I
yeah,
did laugh,
yeah, I did too.
mostly at
Um
myself for watching it, but um, we did do that. And then, but 2 isn't going to have well, no, the sheriff's still alive. So I guess it would still have him chasing the sheriff. I'll say if 2
yeah, I
has
mean the
nothing to
whole
do with the
family is
sheriff,
still alive.
yeah, they need to kill that kid though, because that kid is really going to get them in
That
trouble at
kid's
some
gonna be a
point.
menace, man.
Yeah, when he scooped out it was supposed to be some sort of chocolate cookie thing, and it
Yeah.
just came out like porridge. And they put it in a Ziploc bag, and he's like, "Oh, I'll eat it later." And looking at it like he knows it's already got dirt or something in it. And then you find out it's antifreeze. But I'm just like, man, you probably could have tell the smell in the house should have told you there was antifreeze in it if you're
Yeah.
cooking with it. But yeah, so I don't know. That's our Christmas treat for everybody. Go and
Yeah.
I guess we took the bullet for you.
Yeah. You don't have to watch it now. Just watch the trailer. You're fine.
Yeah, we've told you everything of importance.
And now,
And then
if you
go.
have seen it and you think it's a good movie,
Oh
tell
yeah,
us in the
please tell us.
comments
Please tell us so we can
why
mark you
you
on a
think
list.
so. I got
Keep
to
an
tell
eye on you.
everybody before we started recording, I said to Eric, "Oh, I got to tell you something." And he goes, "You're sorry?" Because, yeah, I picked this movie. Next year, hopefully, our Christmas horror movie will be better. I'll let Eric pick.
Like I said, I don't know if I'd have done any better. When you said Jack Frost, I thought, well, you're right. We haven't seen it. That's one neither one of us had seen, so we'll give it a shot. But then I was like, oh no,
Oh,
I don't
no.
know. But it's kind of like when we were trying to find a Christmas story to read. You know, there's not. It's just not. It's not like Halloween. There's just not that stuff. There's not a ton out there.
Yeah. That's
So
not super modern or super new.
right,
Like I can name off the top of my head like 10 Christmas horror books that were all
right,
published within the last 3 years,
right.
you know.
And so maybe we'll have to break our rule, but our rule's always been to try and do the old stuff. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see. We have a
Yeah.
whole year to figure this out.
Yep. So happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year.
Yeah. Merry Christmas.